The bus rolled into Raywood's quiet downtown just past noon, and I let out a soft breath as I spotted familiar signs through the window. Home. After 2 months staying with my daughter Prudence in Connecticut, I was ready to be back in my own space. I loved Prudence dearly, and her hospitality was warm as ever, but at 67 I craved routine, my own bed, and the comforting rhythm of my quiet little house on Cedar Lane. As I stepped off the bus and onto the sidewalk, the driver gave me a polite nod. "Take care, Mom." "Thank you," I said, hoisting my small suitcase. My knees protested from the long ride, and I moved slower than I used to, but I managed. Raywood hadn't changed much. The same row of tidy homes, the same grocery store where I picked up my Tuesday senior discounts, and the same weathered park where young mothers walked strollers up and down the winding paths. But one thing felt missing. I hadn't seen Lily, my 6-year-old granddaughter, playing in the park in a while. That struck me as strange. The cab dropped me off in front of my modest home. George, my late husband, bought it more than 3 decades ago, calling it a future we can build into. Even now I could hear his words in my mind. "It's not just a house, Evie, it's stability." Inside, the air was still and slightly musty. I opened the windows, letting in the May breeze. The answering machine blinked with 2 messages. One was from Monica at book club, reminding me of next Wednesday's meeting. The second was from the bank, a standard confirmation that the mortgage payment for Nathan's house had gone through. That monthly payment had become a routine part of my life for the past 5 years. After Nathan lost his managerial role at an insurance firm and took a lower-paying position in town, he, his wife Sharon, and their 3 children had moved back to Raywood. I had just buried George at the time, and the house felt unbearably empty. Helping Nathan with the down payment and covering most of the mortgage felt like a blessing, like I had a purpose again. Nathan promised it was temporary, just until I'm back on my feet, Mom. He swore he'd pay it all back. I never pushed. Between George's pension, insurance, and our investments, I wasn't hurting for money. I was just happy to keep the family close. After unpacking and showering, I decided to pay a visit. I missed Lily, her quiet, curious mind, her gentle way of speaking. Sharon's older kids, Kyle and Madison, from her previous marriage, were louder and more demanding. But Lily had always reminded me of myself at that age, observant, thoughtful. Their house was only 10 minutes away. As I walked up the path, I noticed the lawn hadn't been cut in weeks, and the flower beds were wild with weeds. Nathan used to take great pride in keeping his yard neat. That small detail gave me my first tug of unease. Sharon opened the door with a startled expression, her eyes widening for just a second before she forced a bright smile onto her face. "Evelyn, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you today." I smiled politely. "I just got back a few hours ago and thought I'd drop by." "Sure, come on in," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear and pulling down the hem of her oversized t-shirt. "The kids will be happy to see you." She called into the living room. "Kyle, Madison, Grandma Evelyn's here." Notably absent from her list was Lily. I stepped into the house and took in the mess around me. The cushions on the couch were all over the floor. The coffee table was littered with chip bags and soda cans, and the television blared a game show at full volume. A tall boy with headphones around his neck gave me a half-hearted "Hi, Grandma," before returning his attention to the tablet in his hands. Madison ran in from the kitchen chewing something and threw her arms around me. "Did you bring anything back for us?" she asked, smiling sweetly. I chuckled. "Of course I did, darling, but I left my bag at home. I'll bring them next time." I brushed her hair gently. "Where's Lily?" "Upstairs doing homework," Sharon answered quickly, reaching for the remote to lower the volume. "Nathan's still at work. He should be back soon. Would you like some tea?" "I'd love some," I nodded. The kitchen looked different than I remembered. A new stainless steel coffee maker sat on the counter. Next to it, a sleek microwave, nothing like the budget-conscious setup I recalled from before my trip. Sharon poured hot water into 2 mugs as we sat. "So, how's Prudence?" she asked, stirring sugar into her tea. "Still working at that gallery?" "She is. It's keeping her busy. New Haven's nice, but I missed home," I replied. "How's Lily doing in school?" Sharon's expression tightened slightly. "Fine. The teacher says she's quiet. A little too quiet. We're thinking of taking her to a child psychologist." "Maybe she just needs more attention at home," I suggested gently. "We give her plenty of attention," Sharon snapped, then softened her tone. "But we have 3 kids, Evelyn. Lily's not the only one who needs us. Kyle's got a lot going on, and Madison's training for a swim meet in 2 weeks. Her tone drew a clear line. Her children versus Lily. I chose not to press further. Of course, I understand. Still, I couldn't ignore the growing feeling in my chest. Something wasn't right, and Lily's name being left out again and again wasn't just an oversight. It was starting to feel intentional. The next morning, I decided to walk over again. It was a Saturday. Sharon usually worked weekends, and I thought I might have a better chance to see Lily without distractions. I brought along a small book about dinosaurs, her favorite, and a box of Nathan's favorite chocolates as a peace offering. The sun was warm, and Raywood was unusually still. As I approached their house, I heard voices through the open kitchen window. I told you to clean this place up this morning. Nathan's voice was sharp, louder than I'd ever heard. I tried, Dad. Lily's voice trembled. But Kyle spilled juice and I had to mop it first. I don't care about your excuses. Clean the kitchen now, Nathan barked. I froze beneath the window, my heart pounding. I couldn't see them, but I could picture the scene clearly. Look, she's gonna cry again, Madison giggled. She always does, Kyle said with a mocking laugh. Quiet, Nathan snapped, but not at them. I heard a rustling sound, then his voice again. Here, take the rag. 10 minutes. No cartoons if it's not spotless. I couldn't stay quiet. That wasn't parenting. That was bullying. I marched up to the front door and knocked, my pulse steady but my resolve burning. Kyle opened the door, blinking in surprise. Grandma's here, he shouted down the hall, his tone shifting instantly. Nathan appeared, wiping his hands on a towel, all smiles. Mom, what a surprise. Come in, we were just cleaning up after breakfast. I stepped inside, scanning the room. The living room had been hastily tidied. The air still felt heavy. I brought something for Lily, I said, holding up the bag. Where is she? In the kitchen, helping, Nathan said casually. We believe in teaching responsibility early. Everyone pitches in. And everyone? I raised an eyebrow. Kyle and Madison too? Nathan hesitated. Well, they have school stuff, activities. I didn't answer. I walked toward the kitchen. Lily stood on a step stool, her tiny hands gripping a dishcloth, scrubbing the counter with solemn focus. Her t-shirt was damp and her small shoulders were hunched. When she saw me, her eyes widened. Grandma. She climbed down and ran into my arms. I held her close. She smelled faintly of soap and something else, like fear. I brought you a book, I whispered, kneeling down to show her the cover. Dinosaurs. Her face lit up. Lily, Nathan said sharply, walking into the room, you haven't finished wiping the counters. I think she's done enough for today, I said, standing up and turning to him. Nathan frowned. Mom, we have our own system. Then explain it to me, I said evenly. Why is a 6-year-old cleaning the kitchen while teenagers scroll on their phones? Why were you yelling so loud the neighbors could hear you? Nathan stiffened. Lily stepped back, clutching the book to her chest. Go to your room, Lily, Nathan said, not looking at her. She glanced at me. I nodded gently. It's okay, sweetheart. I'll come see you in a bit. When her little footsteps faded upstairs, I faced my son. I raised you better than this. You were taught discipline, not cruelty. Nathan looked away. It was just a raised voice. You're overreacting. I heard it all. I saw your kids laugh at her. And you did nothing. My voice was calm, but inside something had shifted. I wasn't going to ignore it anymore. That evening, I sat by my kitchen window, staring out at the dusk settling over Cedar Lane. I thought of George, how he used to sit in that very chair after dinner, mulling over financial reports or family concerns, always with a calm certainty. Do what's right, Evie, he used to say, even if it's hard. The next morning I pulled out the file I'd been keeping for years. Mortgage agreements, bank transfers, proof of every dollar I'd sent to help Nathan. I called Harrison Dale, George's old law partner and a friend of the family for decades. Evie Harper, Harrison said warmly. Haven't heard from you in a while. What can I do for you? I need legal advice, I said. It's about my son, about the mortgage payments I've been covering. He didn't ask questions. Come in tomorrow morning. Bring everything. Harrison's office was in an old red brick building just off Main Street. He looked older, but his sharp blue eyes hadn't dulled. I laid the documents on his desk. I've been paying 2/3 of Nathan's mortgage for 5 years. I helped with the down payment too. I want to stop. You're not a co-owner, Harrison confirmed, looking over the file. Just a third-party payer. Legally, you can stop at any time. And then what happens? I asked. Nathan becomes solely responsible. If he can't pay, the bank will begin foreclosure proceedings. It'll take time, but that's the process. I nodded slowly. Good, that's what I needed to know. There's more, Harrison added, tapping a page on his screen. He took out a second loan against the house 8 months ago. A sizable one. I felt my stomach twist. A second loan, he never told me. Harrison gave me a sympathetic look. He used the equity you created, your down payment and consistent payments. The bank allowed it. Legally, he didn't need your permission. I thought of Sharon's new SUV, the spring vacation they took, the expensive headphones Madison wore. So that was it. The money hadn't gone toward repairs or bills, it had funded their lifestyle. I felt the anger rise in my chest, not just at the betrayal, but at how they treated Lily while living off my support. What do I need to do to stop the payments? I asked. Harrison pulled a template letter from his drawer. I'll prepare a formal notice for the bank. You'll also need to cancel your standing transfer order. And I want to update my will, I added. Everything, the house, the accounts, the investments. I want it protected, for Lily. He raised his eyebrows but nodded. We'll take care of it. Back at home, I logged into my online banking and canceled the automatic payment. That night, I brewed a pot of strong tea and waited. When Nathan arrived, he looked confused by my calm demeanor. We need to talk, I said simply. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of where that conversation would lead. 3 weeks later, I stood in my garden, clipping back the hydrangeas, when I saw a police cruiser slow down in front of Nathan's house. 2 officers stepped out, not in uniform bailiffs. They walked up to the front door with official envelopes in hand. Foreclosure. I set the pruning shears down and wiped my hands. I had known it would come, but seeing it unfold before my eyes felt heavier than I'd imagined. The next afternoon, Nathan called. Mom, his voice was dry, tired. Can we talk? Of course, I said. Come by any time. He arrived less than an hour later, wearing a wrinkled shirt and a defeated expression. The confident, smooth-talking son I knew was gone. In his place sat a man with shadows under his eyes. It's over, he said, collapsing into a chair. They're auctioning the house in 3 weeks. I poured him a cup of tea. Have you missed any payments? 4. After you stopped, we tried, but with the second loan and credit cards, they wouldn't restructure. I nodded silently. He stared at the floor for a moment before finally meeting my eyes. We're moving to a small apartment on the north side, 2 bedrooms. It's all we can afford. But we need help just to cover the deposit and moving expenses, not for the house. I know that ship has sailed. I studied his face. He looked sincere. Broken, even? What about Lily? I asked. She's fine, he shrugged. Kids adjust fast. She'll be in the room with Madison. My breath caught. Madison. The same Madison who once threatened to throw out Lily's things if she touched her shelf. She's not perfect, but she's just a kid. I shook my head. No, that arrangement won't work. I want Lily to come live with me. Nathan blinked. Live with you? Until you get back on your feet. She can keep her school, her friends, her stability. He hesitated. Sharon might not be on board. She already suggested it? I said, watching his face shift. You talked to her? I did, and I agree with her for once. He looked away, chewing the inside of his cheek. Would it be permanent? For now, I'd like to set up a temporary guardianship. 1 year, renewable. I'll take care of everything, her school, her healthcare, her needs. And you won't give us any money, he asked, already knowing the answer. No, I'm not funding your lifestyle, Nathan, but I'll provide for Lily. He clenched his jaw. We don't even have the money for the deposit. Then sell Sharon's SUV. Sell the tablets and jewelry. You have resources. You just refuse to use them wisely. He shot me a look, part fury, part shame. You're doing this to punish us. No, I said quietly. I'm doing this to protect Lily. So we sat in silence. Then finally Nathan nodded. Okay, but just for now. 1 year. Then we'll revisit. Within the week, Harrison helped draft the paperwork. Sharon didn't show up to sign. It was all handled by Nathan. I didn't press. I had what I needed. Lily moved in with a single suitcase in her school backpack. That's all she had. I cleared out the guest room, once Prudence's old bedroom, and set up a bright, warm space with a new bed, a bookshelf, and soft curtains that caught the morning light. When Lily walked in and saw it, she turned to me and asked quietly, "This is for me." "All yours, sweetheart?" I said, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "This is your home now." For the first time in a long time, I saw something return to Lily's eyes. Hope. The first few nights were difficult. Lily often woke up crying, tangled in her sheets, whispering "I'm sorry" in her sleep. I'd find her curled up, holding her crescent moon pendant, something I'd given her months ago. I would sit beside her, rub her back gently, and remind her, "You're safe now, sweetheart. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Over time, the nightmares faded. She started smiling more, talking louder, laughing, even. The timid child who once barely spoke at the dinner table was now telling me about the books she read, the dinosaurs she loved, and the silly things her classmate Abby said in school. Her teacher called me 2 weeks later. "And Mrs. Harper, I just wanted to say I don't know what changed, but Lily's like a new child. She raises her hand now. She volunteers to come to the board. She even joined the music group at recess." I smiled. She just needed space to be herself. One Saturday morning, we sat on the porch drinking hot cocoa, our new weekend ritual. I asked, "Would you like to try any fun after-school activities? Anything at all? Sports? Art? Science?" Lily hesitated. Then, with eyes shining, she whispered, "I want to learn the piano." "Piano?" I grinned. "That's a beautiful choice." That afternoon, I contacted a retired music teacher, Mrs. Phelps, who lived only a few blocks away. She agreed to take Lily on for weekly lessons. Within a month, Mrs. Phelps called me, her voice full of excitement. "Evelyn, your granddaughter has a gift. She hears a melody once and plays it almost perfectly. She's already ahead of students who've been here for 6 months." I wasn't surprised. I had often seen Lily tapping her fingers in rhythm on tabletops, humming little tunes as she folded her clothes or watered the plants. I used part of my savings to buy a secondhand piano from a couple moving out of town. It wasn't fancy, but it sounded just fine. When Lily came home from school and saw it in the living room, she stopped in her tracks. "You got this for me?" "I did," I smiled, "because you deserve to have the space to dream." From that day forward, the piano became her sanctuary. She played before dinner, after homework, sometimes even in her pajamas before bed. The house was filled with gentle notes, scales, and little improvised tunes that made my heart swell. Nathan and Sharon came by 2 weekends later. They brought Lily an expensive doll, wrapped in shiny paper. Lily thanked them, smiled politely, and placed it carefully on the shelf. Later, she told me in a whisper, "I don't really like dolls, but I think they're trying." She was right. They were trying, but they still didn't know her. That was the difference. I didn't just love Lily, I saw her. And now, finally, she was learning to see herself. 3 weeks after Lily moved in, I went to see my lawyer, Harrison, to revise my will. We met at his office on a breezy Tuesday morning. His secretary brought us tea, and I laid out my intentions clearly. "I want everything, my house, savings, investments, put into a trust for Lily," I said. "Until she comes of age, I want it protected." Harrison nodded. "And your children?" "Prudence will receive a few heirlooms that belong to my mother. Nathan, he'll get his father's watch. That's it." He raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "Absolutely. Lily's the one who needs it. She's the only one who's been overlooked and unsupported." We signed the papers, filed the documents, and just like that, the future was secure. What I didn't plan for was Nathan's unexpected visit that same afternoon. He stopped by to pick up some school records for Lily. She was at her piano lesson, so it was just the two of us. My briefcase, still holding the will, was on the kitchen table. "What's this?" he asked, pointing to the folder labeled Estate Planning. "Personal papers," I said, moving to grab it. But he was quicker. He opened the file and started reading. His face shifted from curiosity to confusion, then to anger. "You changed your will," he said, his voice cold. "You're leaving everything to Lily." "I am." "And me? Just a watch. That's all." "You can't be serious," he said, slamming the folder shut. "After everything I've done for you." "What exactly have you done, Nathan?" I asked calmly. "You used my money for years. You let your wife and her children humiliate my granddaughter. You took out loans without telling me. You lied." "I'm your son," he shouted, "your own blood." "And Lily is your daughter," I replied, my voice still level. "The one you left behind." His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes burned with fury. "You're punishing me. You always favored Prudence." That's not true, I said. I loved you both. But love isn't about spoiling or enabling. Love is about doing what's right, even when it's hard. He stood up, his fists clenched. You'll regret this, I'll contest it. On what grounds? I asked. Because I chose to protect a child instead of a grown man who refuses to grow up. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. I sat still for a long moment, then gathered the papers and filed them away. That was the last time Nathan tried to argue. The months passed quietly. Fletcher's visits to Lily became fewer and more strained. He called occasionally, but the conversations were awkward, full of guilt and small talk. Eventually, even the calls faded. But Lily, she thrived. She excelled at piano. Her teacher was amazed at how quickly she picked up complex pieces. At her first recital, she played a Schumann piece so beautifully that half the room was in tears. I'd invited Nathan, but he never showed. When we came home that night, Lily looked up at me as we sat in the kitchen eating cake. Do you think Daddy's proud of me? I took her hand. I know he loves you, sweetheart, but pride takes attention, and attention takes effort, and not everyone knows how to give that. She nodded slowly. I'm glad you came to my recital. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. That night, as I cleaned up the dishes, I realized something. The story wasn't about revenge. It was about protection, about drawing a line not out of anger but out of love. I didn't cut off my son to be cruel. I did it to save a little girl. And in saving her, I saved myself too. Some stories don't end with fireworks or final showdowns. Sometimes, they end with a quiet home, the soft notes of piano music, and a little girl who finally sleeps through the night without fear. I lost a son, yes, but I gained something deeper, the peace of knowing I did what was right. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting someone you love, I hope you choose courage. Because sometimes the strongest love isn't loud, it's steady. If this story touched you, leave a comment, share it with someone, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories like this one.